All right, let's get on to the next one, the situation in with Columbia University.
Yeah, so there's a bunch of stuff going on here, but let's start with this. We can put this reporting up from our friends over at DropSite on the screen. So on Saturday night, DHS agents entered a student residential building at Columbia University, and they detained Mahmoud Khalil. He was one of the lead negotiators on behalf of pro-Palestine protesters at 2024's Gaza Solidarity Encampment. I'm reading this from DropSite's article here. And in what they describe as a sweeping attack on the First Amendment, the Trump administration said this week it would begin revoking visas of, quote, Hamas sympathizers, specifically citing Columbia University students. So now they have arrested Khalil, reportedly had no warrant. Khalil has not been charged with any crimes. He is not here actually on a student visa. He's here on a green card. So he is a legal permanent resident. And at least as of this morning, he has been effectively disappeared. His lawyers and his wife, who is 8 months pregnant, have no idea where he is. They originally thought that he was at an ICE facility in New Jersey. His wife went there to try to find him. The officers there said, no, he's not there. So they have no idea. And so it really is, we can put E2 up on the screen, which explains that situation about, really having no clue where he is. This is from Thacker. He says, Mahmoud's attorney says they do not know where he is. They were first told he was sent to an ICE facility in Elizabeth, New Jersey. When his 8-month pregnant wife tried to visit him, she was told he's not there. They've received reports he may be sent as far away as Louisiana. So Mahmoud Khalil, again, who is a green card holder, set to be deported over pro-Palestine activism, meaning that if he had been involved in protests criticizing the US government, he'd be fine. But because he was involved in protests targeting Israel, a foreign nation, now he's been disappeared and set for deportation.
Yeah, and I actually looked to see if he'd even been charged with a crime. He was not even charged with a crime.
No.
That would be, see, that's the other thing. It'd be one thing. It's like, oh, you were arrested, you're here on a visa, you're a guest in this country. It's like, okay. But literally just being a student protester, it's like, I'm not seeing this, because there are plenty of Israeli students who are out on the streets and UCLA and all that protesting on behalf of Israel. Okay, we're gonna start revoking their their student visas or any of that anytime soon. They got great universities in Tel Aviv. I've seen them. I'm not, why are you even over here if you need to come protest, right? So that's the problem that I really have with this thing. And I was looking into it. He is a lawful permanent resident, as you said. He's a green card holder. He actually is entitled to a hearing with an immigration judge. So the judge would have to buy that he not only, because the thing is, for DHS to initiate deportation against a green card holder, and this is very different than a student visa or other temporary visas. Temporary visas can be basically revoked without cause. The student green card legal permanent resident holder effectively has, they have very similar rights to a U.S. citizen. And for their deportation, they have to prove that they violated criminal procedure. Now, their claim here is that this was a violation of President Trump's executive orders on anti-Semitism. So that's where this whole thing falls apart. And like I said, it would be one thing. It's like, okay, you commit a crime, sure, get out of here. You have done this or that, fine. I have no issue with that. If we want to apply a blanket standard against all foreign students aren't allowed to, I even would be okay with that, because it would include some of these other. But this is just capricious, and it's on behalf, clearly, of a foreign state who just wants these people to be deported for having the audacity to protest against them. That's where I really have an issue broadly, because it just is so blatant. And I'll just continue on this. This is the end result of the Bill Ackman faction joining the Republican Party. Let's not forget, why did Bill Ackman become political? The day after October 7th, he publicly started doxing students who were protesting Israeli military campaign in Gaza. Did some of them say a lot of stupid shit? Absolutely. But he was compiling Google Doc dossiers of these folks saying, oh, we shouldn't even hire them. We got to, deport all of these folks. And that is, again, where, we have an American billionaire here basically agitating to deport people who are protesting a foreign nation. And that is where it's just so unbelievable, to watch this all happen, and the power of the United States government. When, yeah, if you were protesting, I don't know, the US policy in Syria, nobody even cares.
Right.
You know? You see it all the time.
Protest Trump.
I was telling
Protest
this about
Biden.
I was telling this to Ryan. You know, we live here in D.C. You know, you go down to Embassy Row. There's protests about everything. You know, there's Myanmar protests outside the Burmese embassy. There's protests outside Darfur. Always. There's always a protest outside of I don't know. I've seen protests outside the Cambodian embassy. Nobody cares. Nobody's out here and like, oh, let's deport these folks or whatever. Go outside the White House. Anytime you're here in Washington, there's some stupid protest. Sorry, but there's some protest outside of the White House. It's not usually Palestine or whatever related. It's like, I don't know, Turkey, something like that. Nobody even blinks an eye. It's just the average, everyday part of life. But somehow for this one, the full force of the U.S. government comes down on their side. I can't deal with it. I really can't. It's just unbelievable.
Well, and the way that this all got spun up is we can put E2B up on the screen. This is our old friend Shai Davidai, who is this absolutely psycho professor at Columbia, who actually, I think he was forced to be removed from campus because he was being so aggressive and abusive towards students. He
was doxing his own students.
Yeah. So anyway, I don't want to misspeak because I'm sure Mr. Davidai will come after me. But you guys can Google, the extent of what he was involved with there, Columbia University, and the abuse he was hurling at his own students there at the school. But so he had tweeted this. He says, "Dear Secretary Rubio, thank you for your strong statements. Now we want to see strong action. Illegally taking over a college in which you're not even enrolled in distributing terrorist propaganda should be a deportable offense." No, I would love to see what this quote-unquote terrorist propaganda is, by the way, because they always say this, and I have yet to see, what this alleged terrorist propaganda was. Because that's what Mahmoud Khalil from Columbia SJP did yesterday at Barnard College. So this guy makes Mahmoud Khalil, who again has been charged with no crimes, but was a lead negotiator in terms of like the Palestinian rights movement encampment on campus, et cetera. So targets him. Next thing you know, DHS is coming in without a warrant onto campus and arresting Khalil. Apparently, when they first were interacting with him and his wife, they were under the impression that he was there on a student visa, which again, I would find unconscionable to, criminalize like First Amendment speech and whatever, but it is a very different deal when you're there on a student visa. And they find out he's a green card holder, but they've been given instructions to target this guy. So they just continue forward. And when DropSite and other news outlets asked DHS for comment on the fact that this was a green card holder, a legal permanent resident, not a student visa holder, they said, you need to talk to the White House, meaning this came from the top. This came directly from the White House. And so now Rubio has put out a tweet, let's put this up on the screen, doubling down on this, what is also, to Saagar's point about the process that you have to follow here. Like, this is all brazenly illegal when it comes to green card holders, because they do have a right to due process. You cannot just arrest and disappear someone with no warrant and deport them without going through a process and coming in front of an immigration judge and proving that you have cause to revoke their green card and ultimately deport them. But Rubio doubles down here, saying we will be revoking green card and student visa holders of quote unquote Hamas supporters. What's more, actually put E5 up on the screen. They're using AI to sift through all of these students' social media accounts to find ones who are quote unquote pro-Hamas. And again, when you see that, some of the things that have been offered as proof that Khalil himself was quote unquote pro-Hamas was him participating in rally chants or leading rally chants like from the river to the sea, Palestine will be free. That's what we're talking about here, okay? We're not talking about he's, joining up and he's, like an actual material supporter of Hamas or any other terrorist organization in any way. We're talking about rally chants and handing out flyers on campus. That's what they deem quote unquote pro-Hamas. And so this is incredibly dystopian. Like, I don't care what you think about this particular issue. If you support basic speech rights, you can see the way that this is an authoritarian overreach, a mass government censorship effort to try to quash speech that they and their donors specifically do not like. And the fact that this was so lawless as well. Like, if they don't have to follow the laws in this case, they don't have to follow the laws in any case. It doesn't have to just apply to, people who are green card holders. It could apply to literally anyone if you're just going to throw the laws out. So if you're someone who's positioned yourself or claimed to support the First Amendment, this and the revocation of Columbia's $400 million in federal funding, like, this is all a blatant attack on basic First Amendment right to speech. So it is outrageous, and I hope people understand what the stakes are here, because it also is really a test case. We can put E4 up on the screen. This is the Trump administration, again, without any process here, says it was cutting off about $400 million in federal contracts and grants to Columbia University. This, by the way, after Columbia did really everything you could want them to do. They suspended a bunch of students. They suspended faculty that were quote unquote anti-Semitic or shared, had some text message exchange that they found to be problematic. They've instituted some sort of root out the anti-Semitism task force that's going after students for things like the crime of writing a pro-Palestine op-ed. They invited the cops onto campus to, get to arrest people who were involved in the takeover of Hind Hall. Like, they have done everything that a Biden and now Trump administration would want them to do, but it's never enough. They're going to be made an example of. And there are many other schools that are also on the target list for the Trump administration. You've got Harvard University, George Washington University, Johns Hopkins, New York University, Northwestern University, UCLA, UC Berkeley, University of Minnesota, and University of USC, University of Southern California, are the ones that are particularly being targeted by the Trump administration here. So, spare me your lectures about 1A support if you don't have anything to say about this one.
Fire did speak up on behalf, so I'm very glad to see it.
Fire's great.
Yeah, Fire's awesome.
Yeah.
We love them.
Yeah.
By the way, the ADL did come out with a new statement on the situation. Let me go ahead and read this, because it's just good. It's delicious, right? We firmly believe there should be swift and severe consequences for those who provide material support to foreign terrorist organizations, incite violence in support of terrorist activities, or conceal their identities. We appreciate the Trump administration's broad, bold set of efforts to counter campus anti-Semitism, and this action further illustrates that resolve by holding alleged perpetrators responsible. Obviously, any deportation action or revocation of a green card or visa must be undertaken in alignment with required due process protections. We also hope this action serves as a deterrent to others who might consider breaking the law on college campuses or anywhere. And so, yeah. I mean, this is the irony.
If you broke the law, charge them.
That's what I was saying. This is the irony of it. You remember that whole UCLA thing when you had those guys who, they got into clash or whatever you want to call it in the middle of UCLA? How many of those people were Israeli citizens? How many of those people were dual Israeli citizens? It's like, well, we don't want to talk about that one? It's like, that's my point with all of this, is that the capricious standard is just applied on behalf of this foreign. It makes me want to throw up as an American citizen. We could protest India, Pakistan, whatever. Nobody cares
we can
at
protest
all.
our own government.
Yeah. And you should. You should protest your government. But it's just like with this one, it's just so naked. The way that it all works, and it's all, again, because of this genuine obsession. And I know a lot of these people who are obsessed. They really believe that all of these folks are like paid assets to protest on behalf of Palestine. And it's just such cope because, people here know. I couldn't stay. I even advised people not to do this because of, potential blowback in your personal life. But not only is it a right, they believe that they're only doing it because of being paid, for their action. And they just can't grapple with, it's just as organic as any right-wing protest that we've seen. You can offer support, camps, any of that other stuff, but if people don't actually feel outraged about it, then they're not going to show up. So,
True.
There's always this AstroTurf argument, and they really believe, America is just all, okay with what's all happening in Israel. And I mean, to the extent that they are, if they don't even know anything about it, they don't think about it that much. But the people who are, it's like, okay, fine, let them do whatever they want to do. And, Trump even said prior to that, do we have that, the thing about him expelling people? Do we have that? It is...
I don't think.
Okay, we didn't pull it over. Ryan and I did a segment about it. I mean, he's basically saying a U.S. citizen would be expelled from their college, And I remember I was engaged in all these fights back in the 2014, 2015 time period over these kangaroo courts over like Me Too allegations that would expel students. And it was similar, mass hysteria over this, basically denying not only due process rights, but literally expelling students for some he said, she said incident. Well, you know, here you would have the government in a similar position just coming in and saying, even if you haven't committed a crime, that expressing an opinion or doing wrongthink will get you expelled from college. That's the part where I just can't take it, you know? And I'm somebody who hates higher education. I'm happy to see Columbia
They
with
didn't
less
even bother
money.
with a kangaroo court
That's
here.
what I mean. My net benefit would be slash them all. I think it'd be great. But, you know, to do it on behalf of Israel, that's too much. It's too much.
Yeah.
You got to at least, you know, try and do it from the perspective of what's good for us. That's the part that I can't see.
It truly is outrageous. I mean, right now, Israel is cutting off. They already cut off aid to Gaza, and they're cutting off electricity to Gaza. This makes it this severely limits the amount of just clean drinking water because, you know, the desalination plants, like the water purification, obviously you need electricity. You're not allowed to protest that. You're not allowed to have a problem with that. Like, you can have your status, like, as a lawful permanent resident here revoked without any due process. You could be kicked out of school without any due process. Total carte blanche for the government to sift through your social media posts and see if you're engaged in any sort of wrongthink. I mean, this is truly some of the most authoritarian anti-First Amendment overreach that I have seen. And we've laid the groundwork for many administrations, starting with the Patriot Act, probably starting before that, but really ramp it up with the Patriot Act. You know, every administration has increasingly, you know, sought to censor those who they found their voices or their opinions to be inconvenient. This is another level. It truly is another level. And, you know, what they have done here, it clearly violates this Mahmoud Khalil's rights to due process. The fact that they have no idea where he is terrifying and outrageous. And the message that they are trying to send here also is terrifying and outrageous, because many people will think twice about speaking out for their own job and school prospects, et cetera. And certainly if they are, you know, certainly if they are green card or student visa holders, et cetera. And that's exactly the point. The ADL said, like, I hope this serves as a deterrent. And that's exactly what the goal here ultimately is.
Hey, if you like that video, hit the like button or leave a comment below. It really helps get the show to more people.
And if you'd like to get the full show ad-free and in your inbox every morning, you can sign up at breakingpoints.com.
That's right. Get the full show, help support the future of independent media at breakingpoints.com.